What's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of JB Trickle RC. This is actually going to be the first actual video that I've done after a few requests in the comment sections and in person I've gotten. And what we're actually going to be doing is doing some setup and tuning tips and tricks for the 10th scale oval pan cars. Now, just to give you some information up front and let you know, all the information I'm giving you is what I go by and what works for my cars on a paved oval outdoor track. The carpet oval world, there's plenty of similarities, but there's a little bit of differences too. So, and I don't know that much about the carpet oval. I've never raced that. I've always raced the outdoor paved oval. So some of this information will translate, some of it may not. So let me start this video off by saying that whether you're racing at an outdoor paved oval track with banking or you're racing on an indoor carpet track, a flat oval, be sure to reach out to some of your local racers. They will help you. Majority of them will help you, get you pointed in the right direction, get you a baseline if you're struggling. The majority of folks involved with the RC world are very, very helpful and friendly. So, but again, guys, thanks for the comments. Thanks for some of the feedback I've been getting. And so I'm trying to hit up some of those requested videos for you. But with all that said, let's get right into it.
We gotta talk, all right? All right, Harry, talk. No, on the radio during a race. Now, you want to run right on the ragged edge all the time, you gotta tell us what's going on with the car.
Well, you just want to change the way I drive it.
Maybe.
Well, maybe you could set up the car so I don't have to change.
Well, I'd be happy to. You just tell me how.
Well, what do you want to know?
So that's a great question. How can we tune the car to you so the car drives the way you like it? There's a something that we've talked about in the RC world with some of my friends before. You could take 3 to 5 people that all are running the exact same car, put the exact same setup on it. Those 3 or 5 people, however many in the group you're going to try that with, are probably going to have different results. Some are going to like it, some are not going to like it, some are going to, have this opinion or that opinion. And that's due to various reasons. One, you as a driver has to find that what you like in the car, how you like it to drive, your driving style. But not only that, if you take that car and set it up the same way across the board, is it really set up the same way? Unless you put it down, scaled the car, measured everything out, and if you, your shock oils, another big factor. Just because you're all saying you're running the same shock weight oil, are you running the same brand? There can be a difference between low C shock oil brand and associated shock oil brand, even though they're the same weight. There could be a difference. So that's something to think about. So what we're going to focus on is getting the car right and then tuning it to your liking. Or if you're loose, make this adjustment. If you're tight, make this adjustment. But that's one thing we're going to focus on this video is some of these tuning tricks and how to adjust that car for you and your likings. So most of you are already going to know this, but for those of you that don't, that may be new to this, I'm going to give you an explanation of the call outs for like the left front, left rear, right rear. You're going to hear a lot in this video. So to kind of explain that, imagine that there's an actual driver in this car like you see here. So with that, you're going to treat this just like it's a real vehicle. So you're going to have your left front, left rear, right front, right rear, all from the perspective of the actual driver as if you were sitting in the car yourself. That's how we're going to call this out. That's how it's referenced as if you were sitting in the car. So whenever you say left front, it's like you're in the car itself. That's how we refer to it. And I just wanted to call that out now to help save any possible confusion for anybody that was not aware of that. One other area I want to go ahead and cover too is talk about the camber for these pan cars. Camber is a common front end adjustment that you're going to have on these cars. You're going to be typically running anywhere between 1 to 3 degrees roughly. Some people run less, some people run more, but I'd say 1 to 3 is on average. Now, if you take a look at this diagram, you're going to notice that on the left front of the car, you're going to be running positive camber. What those blue line represents is 0 camber and a perfectly straight vertical line. And the red line is actually representing the camber, the angle of your tire. So on your left front, you're going to be running positive camber where the top of the tire will be leaning towards the left. On the right side, you're going to be running negative camber. And again, if you look at the blue vertical line, which represents zero camber, you're going to notice that the red line that is representing your negative camber, it would mean that the top of the tire is going to be leaning towards the center of the car, the inside of the car. The biggest thing to take away from this to notice is that your camber is both going to be pointing in the left direction. I personally typically tune anywhere between 1.5 to maybe 3 degrees, somewhere in that area. And that's generally where I stay. Like I said earlier, some people can go less, some people can go more. But I think, again, for myself, I've ran between 1.5 to 3, depending on the track and scenarios. All right, guys. So let's start off here. And one thing I want to go ahead and let you know, this is a Hyperdrive Spec 7 pan car chassis, 10th scale pan car chassis. And what I'm going to do is I'm not so much as just going to throw out a specific setup out there to you, but what I am going to do is tell you the tuning guides to it. And the reason I'm not going to get into too many setup specifics is because it's going to vary from track to track. Are you running an outdoor paved oval with banking? Are you running a flat track? Are you running an indoor carpet track? But one thing I do want to let you guys know, because this is an important part of the setup, there's several areas of the cars that you can have slightly off that is easily to figure out and adjust. But one area that has always seemed to be tough for new racers or people unaware is the initial front end setup on these cars. Okay, now on this particular car here, I'm just running an old-fashioned aluminum caster block setup. This is the 3-hole. There is a hole here, here, and here on both sides, and you can adjust your upper control arm forward or backward based on this caster block. Now, one reason why I don't go into this specific is if you have this out of whack, the car's not going to turn. And the particular setup I'm going to give you, again, I know some of the carpet oval guys may run it slightly different. I know other tracks may, but I'm going to give you some of my feedback. Specifically, if you're running at Easley with the Iceberg 100 race coming up, this may help you, especially if you're new. But what I want to let you know is you're going to see, let's see if I can get a good overall shot. On my right front, which is this side here, okay, you're going to notice that the pin in that block, let's see if I can get a better angle here. I'm going to turn it this way. You're going to notice that all my shims here on this pin are on the back. There are none on the front. And then you're also going to notice that I am in the middle hole on that caster block. And what that is doing is that's pulling that control arm down just a little bit on that side. Okay. And then it may be kind of hard to see, but what this actually does, having all these spacers here, basically having this control arm pulled back, it's actually laying this pin back at an angle a little bit. What this is doing is see if I can get a side profile shot. Instead of the pin sitting straight up like this, it's actually sitting like this a little bit. Now, likewise on the left front, or I should say, unlike that, on the left front, you're going to see that I have one spacer here, 2 of those plastic spacers here, and a small brass spacer. That was to take out some of the play because it still had a little bit. I was not running a locking screw on this side. I need to put one back in. But, and what that generally does, excuse me, before I get to that, let me show you this. And then you're going to notice on this caster block, I'm on the top hole. And that's got the upper control arm this side more parallel to the lower A arm. And then and again, different from the right front, what that's going to do on this side over here, that's going to get that pin more straight up and down. There's no angle on this side. And again, guys, I just want to touch on that because that's one area a lot of people new to pan cars seem to get wrong. And again, I'm not telling you my way is the only way of doing it. This is the way that we've been running this for many years. In fact, occasionally on that right front, may even go down to that bottom hole, depending on track conditions. But this is my breakout truck. These trucks are slow enough, or these tires promote a lot of grip. So it's got really good traction, so I'm not too worried about that. But I wanted to just give you kind of a basic front end setup, and what that's going to do is help the car turn and turn properly. If you have these out of whack, the car is going to loop around, spin out. It can be a potential nightmare. So I did want to give you a basic setup on that. And I know that there are several different front ends that manufacturers make. There's a GFRP front end. There's like some newer KSG front end. There's the old Associated style front end. Some of the older ones even had plastic caster blocks that, instead of having adjustments like these aluminum ones do, you had to replace those blocks. You might get like a set of, I don't know, 6 of them or something. And you can adjust angles and things of that nature with it. But if you don't have them, I do at least recommend getting these aluminum adjustable caster blocks, because it does make tuning the car easier. But the way I have these spaced and everything I just got done telling you about will help the front end for your baseline and initial setup and help you get around that track. Okay, now one area with pan cars that most of you may know, some people just starting out may not be aware, you actually only have 3 shocks on the car. You got your center shock and your 2 side shocks. The front ends of these cars simply have a spring on that kingpin. Another pre-race thing you want to know about these pan cars, I'd like to let everyone know, you want to have the car as free as you can have it, as far as your moving parts, okay? Your kingpins in the front, you want them to move freely up and down through all of your control arm components and things of that nature. If you take a spring off and you take that whole front end apart, you should be able to pick up that kingpin, drop it, and it right back through with no problem. You don't want any play in it, but you want it as frictionless as you can get it. You want everything to move smooth. You want everything to move smoothly and freely, as frictionless as you can get it. So it may require some polishing and some slight fitting, but that's a normal part of the hobby. So let's go ahead and get into some of the tuning adjustments. I like to consider your pan car oval racing kind of in 3 phases. Okay, phase 1 is going to be turn entry. Phase 2 is going to be center of the turn, and phase 3 is the exit of the turn. So you want to have a car that can get in. So let's start off on that. Okay, if your car is pushing into the entry, there's a few things that you can try to help free the car up. One thing you can try is add a softer right front spring. Generally, if you soften up the front end, the car will turn a little easier. That doesn't mean you need to go front and left springs, but it may. But I would start off by trying a front spring change, a right front spring change only. Another thing that you can do is actually move your left front tire out. And by out, I mean moving it to the left. Generally, if you shift the front end of your car to the left, it will promote turning in a little bit better. I generally do this. If you're going to shift this tire to the left a little bit, you may have to bring your right front tire in. Now, the axles on the front of these cars generally have enough room to where you're having to put front axle shims on there, and that will allow you to make that slight shimming adjustment to move your tires in or out, and however necessary. So again, if your car is pushing into the turn, you can try moving your left front tire to the left as well. And again, I personally, if I were going to do that, I would go ahead and move that right front tire in a little bit as well. Another thing you can try is a thicker oil in the right rear shock. I generally don't do that. I usually work off of more of spring or collar adjustments here, but that is an option that you can look at as well. So with that said, let's look on the opposite end now. What if you're loose going into the turn? You're trying to enter the corner and you're spinning out.
Whoa, it's all over the place. When the rear end's loose, car's fast. Loose is fast and on the edge of out of control.
Another good one, Harry. You're right. Loose is fast and on the edge out of control. But in the pan car world, and really all racing world, how loose can you actually afford to be? If you're so loose that you're fast and you're laying down those good times, that's fine. But if you get up in traffic and you're required to drive somewhere, if you need to drive high, low, somewhere else on the track to get around someone else, and you're so loose that you're going to spin out, does that really even benefit you? I don't think so. Other people are probably going to have different opinions on that, and that's fine. But you do want to have your car as free as you can get without spinning out. I like to have my car, you know, where I can still drive it elsewhere on the track if I need to. If I need to move up, move down, if I've got to make a sudden movement to try to avoid a wreck. You don't want a car so free that whenever you're coming out of the corner, just one small move on that radio is going to cause you to loop out or cause you to spin out. That's doing nothing but hurting you and potentially those around you. Yes, loose is fast, but it comes with a cost. So think about that. Well, at that point, then you could look at a few different options as well. Then one thing you could do is find the next softer side shock springs on both sides. Okay, because that's going to help promote tightening the car just a little bit. So that may help you if your front end's right. We'll get to more on that in a minute. Now, you could also go to, much like the changing to a softer right front spring, you could actually go to a stiffer right front spring. And again, just like if you were pushing earlier, you don't necessarily have to change both. You want to change that right front, I would do that as well. And just a word of advice, don't get crazy with that. Don't go more than a pound or two more, because if that's not helping you, there may be something else going on with the car. So again, a recap is if you're loose going into a turn, the car's spinning out whenever you're going in, you can try a set of softer springs on the rear side shocks, or change to a stiffer right front spring. And much to the opposite of earlier too, you can also move the left tire in. And then at the same time, you may want to move that right tire out. And another thing that, and I'm not a big fan of this on some of the other cars. It's not that I'm not a big fan. Some of the newer cars don't have as much adjustment in this area anymore. But another thing that you could do too, which I'm already on the upper holes here, but if you're loose into a turn, you can move the side shocks both up one hole. That's another old tuning method that can generally help as well. But that's, you know, on a lot of these newer cars, they don't have as much adjustment there as some of the pan cars of the past. There is, on the Spec 7, there is adjustment. There's 2 holes. But I generally run on the upper hole anyway. I may have to adjust that eventually, but that is another tuning option. So now let's talk about phase 2, the center of the corner. Now with the center of the corner, you can also feel a push or the car being a little too free. So what you're going to do for the center is if you feel like the car's got a slight push, you can change your center spring and go to the next stiffer spring, and that will free you up. Now, I also use this change as an overall adjustment for the car. If I feel that the car's too tight, I will go up to a stiffer spring to free that up a bit. Another thing that you can do is the stiffer front left spring. Okay, so now we're talking about that left side where we have been talking about the right side. Now we're talking about the left side. And again, you want to watch your front spring adjustments because those are easy to get out of whack. I personally don't like to run anything crazier than maybe more than 2 pound difference. That's a personal preference. I'm not telling you if that's the only way, the right way, or the wrong way, but that is a preference of mine. Drastic conditions can sometimes call for drastic measures. So the center corner adjustments can still affect the overall changes of the car, but I just want to go ahead and highlight that area. Now, if you're loose center, if you feel that you're getting into the corner fine and you feel like you have good traction, the car's stable, the car's fast, you're getting in, you're able to turn in where you want to, but the center out, you feel like you're getting loose, what you might want to do is go to the next softer center spring. And again, I use this center spring as an overall adjustment on the car, whether I'm feeling it tight or loose. But if you're loose center and entry, I'll even say that, you can go to the next softer center spring. And much like we just talked about on the opposite side of if you were tight, if you're loose on center, you can even go to a softer left front spring. So that's a couple adjustments you can look at. Okay, so now we're going to go into phase 3. Phase 3 is your corner exit.
All right, now we're going to do it 50 laps my way, all right? Now when you were racing Indy cars out west, the tires were twice as wide and the car weighed half as much. Now your car weighs twice as much and the tires are half as wide and you're burning them up, all right? Now what you do, when you burn them up, they melt. When they melt, they get greasy and you slip and slide and you're out of control. All right? Look, let's go.
Good point, Harry. But that's one thing we don't have to worry about in the pan car world. While the tires that we race, whether it's CRC with the breakout trucks or some of the BSR spec tires that we race in like the 17.5 Pro class, the tires are at a set width, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. In the carpet world, that may be a little bit different, but I believe they're at a set width as well. However, what you can do in this circumstance is your wheel or tire spacing. So you can actually make adjustments on your rear spacing on each side, as well as your front spacing. But we'll touch on that here shortly as well. Now, you got to have a car that can enter good, and you got to have a car that can get through the center good to be able to get a good exit. It all starts with your entry. If you can get a car entering good, you should be able to get a car to get off good. You may have to tune that. And again, those center corner adjustments still affect the overall entry and exit of the car, but I just wanted to break this down into 3 sections. But now with phase 3, exiting of the corner, if you're pushing, if your car's tight coming out of that corner, there's a few adjustments you can look at doing as well. One of those being, if you're pushing out of the corner, you may want to move that left rear tire in. Take this and move it in. On this particular car here, I've already got it pulled in. You can see some shims down there. And I've got some 10,000 shims, 20,000 shims, and I've got some thicker aluminum hyperdrive shims. These shim adjustments, whenever you're moving your tires in or out, take it slow. Don't take too big of a swing at it. But trust me, whenever I tell you 10 and 20 thousandths go a long way on a pan car. Fine adjustments at a time, practice. But again, if you're pushing on exit, you can take 1 or 2 of these shims out, depending on what size shims you got. Move this left rear tire in towards the pod. Another thing that you can do if your car is pushing on exit is you can do a softer side spring on the right rear. Now, there's actually 2 ways you can do that. First of all, if I'm on the track and I'm already practicing and I just want to do a quick adjustment, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thread this collar away from the center. And what that's going to do is take some of the preload off and somewhat mimic a softer spring. Because at least that way, while you're out there on the track practicing, that will give you, you'll be able to tell if that made an adjustment or not. You are affecting the overall wedge in the car and your cross weights and all that stuff by doing so, but that will give you an immediate read. Okay, so that's another option you can do. And the third option is an option that's a lot of times missed by a lot of people. Whenever you have the body on the car, if you're running a adjustable wing, okay, you could move that spoiler or that wing forward on the car. Okay, because what's that gonna? Well, that's gonna pull a little bit of the downforce away, free up the car a little bit on exit. Okay, so now, what do you do if you're spinning out and you're loose on exit? Let's say you're getting in good, you're getting through center good, but whenever you come around that corner, it just loops around on you on exit. What do you do then? Well, pretty much the exact opposite of what we did from whenever we're pushing. One thing you can do is move your right rear out, okay? Now on this car here, I'm gonna show you, I don't have a lot of spacers in here on mine. So if that was the case, I would definitely shift this outward. Okay, that's a good adjustment if the car's loose coming out. The next thing you can do is put the next stiffer right rear side spring on the car. Or you can actually thread that collar in a little bit. And again, you're going to be changing your cross weights and all that stuff on the car, but that's going to give you an immediate read to know if that helps the car. Now, I do want to tell you now, if that is something that you do on the collars and this and that and the other, if you change a spring, put the collar back to where it was. That way you can maintain everything close to originally how it was set up in the car. Now, you will generally be running this in a little bit, depending on your setup, depending on the weight of sprung, and depending on what class you're running, just to give the car a little bit of wedge. But that's, we can maybe get into that more on another day. Right now, I'm just talking about overall simple tuning guides to help you guys out that are new to pan cars. The other option is exact opposite of case we're pushing. If you're loose on exit, you can take that wing on the car and you can slide it back on the body. Now, the wings do have to be adjustable for that to work. But again, what I want to do is show you This is an adjustable wing. So here you can move the spoiler in, or you can move the spoiler out, either direction. So that's what I was talking about, but I just wanted you to see that. So that's your overall adjustments on the cars, of what you want to do if you're loose or too tight and things of that nature. And one other thing I do want to talk about again is your shimming and your rear axle spacing and things of that nature, and your ride heights. Generally, you want the car as low as you can get, depending on your surface. You need to allow the car to make sure it has room for suspension travel, that it's not going to bottom out, and sometimes too low is just that, way too low. So I'm not going to get into that too much, but I am going to tell you generally you want it as low as you can get it. And I personally, the car will generally sit with the front end a hair lower than the rear end with your ride heights. And in case you're wondering, you adjust your rear ride heights on a pan car with these little inserts here. It's also a bearing housing for your solid rear axle, but these come in different heights. You can turn them upside down, stand them upright. They got them on 0, so it's dead even. As you can see on mine, I've actually got mine sitting a little higher towards the top because that gives it a lower ride height. Gets the car lower to the ground, lower center of gravity, and all that good stuff. But generally, I like to run my front ends on my cars a little bit lower than the rear, but as low as you can get it, without it scraping and things of that nature. In fact, this is my 8.0 breakout truck, and I feel that I could actually get this a little bit lower. And I haven't really messed with that anymore because the truck's been running good. But a lot of that has to do with it being, a breakout truck, and these are, running 8-second lap times. So it's not that fast, and so the car just, it handles really good as it is. That's one reason why I haven't tuned it more. But my 17.5 car is set up completely different than this. Again, this is my truck set up for 8.0 breakout. My 17.5 car, completely different setup, completely different rear spacing, completely different front spacing, different front end, big difference. I just wanted to give you a tutorial on some basing tuning methods and things that could help you if you're loose or tight through the corners. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I was able to help some of you, some of my friends that are already experienced pan car RC paved oval racers. I know this video may not have been, necessarily for you. Most of you guys are aware of this information, but I'm hoping I was able to help somebody considering getting into the hobby, or helping someone that's either new into it or somebody that may have been struggling and not have known some of this information. But guys, I do highly recommend too, once you get the car working and you're getting information from people and the car's doing something you like, write that down. You can go online and print off some pan car setup sheets and record your setups on those. I would show you one, but I need to print off some more as well. But you can find them online, a PDF format, print those out, write down your notes, write down what you did to the car. And I suggest starting a race book. I've got here JB Trickle's Racing for Dummies. Just a notebook I started, and what I do with this is I hold my setup tips in here. I hold my notes in here. What did the car do on this day? What setup was I on? Things of that nature. But I also have like the tuning books and my manuals for some of my cars I keep in here as well. So I suggest starting one of these, taking good notes and keeping track of all your changes, and that'll only help you even further. But again, guys, I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Hopefully I was some help, and I'll catch you on the next episode.